looks like we've got everybody here. Thank you all for coming. Most of you I know, some of you I don't, so welcome to those of you who I don't know as well. This is our Lunch and Learn series. We do these pretty regularly, although this is the first one of this year. We were kind of waiting for the snow to melt. So this is online marketing, the new rules for business, and I'm going to introduce our presenter in a second. I just wanted to touch on a few new things in the studio while I've got you all here. One is our brand new teleprompter over there that some of you may not be aware of yet, which allows us all kinds of new capabilities. Some of you are already taking advantage, which is great. We also have this new monitor, which you can turn both directions. So what we've done is we've taken these elements and created a presentation set in this back corner here. It's dismantled for today, but the idea is basically like today, if you have a presentation, a PowerPoint, a slideshow, something like that, you can load it into our teleprompter over there and load your visuals into the monitor and have them over your shoulder, and you can present your presentation right to the camera. So that's available if anyone wants to take advantage of that. We also totally overhauled our lighting grid, as you may be able to tell. We basically just moved it off the wall and removed the stage and expanded everything so we can accommodate a larger footprint now. So if you have a 6-piece band you want to bring in here, you can do that now, which is nice. And we also expanded our green screen set. We brought it around the walls, and we also purchased green cloth that takes care of the floor. So we can create a full virtual set now, which is nice. So if that interests any of you, come and talk to us. All right, so down to business. Hans Riemer, our presenter today, has over 30 years of domestic and international experience working in marketing and sales for business-to-business technology companies, from startups to members of the Global 500. He has implemented hundreds of successful internet marketing and lead generation programs for companies in a variety of industries. Hans worked in senior product management and market development roles for Apollo Computer, Hewlett-Packard, and Novell. Served as VP of Marketing for Ultimap, did I say that correct? Yep. Ultimap Corporation, and more recently as Director of Business Development and Corporate Communications for the software division of Hitachi Computer Products. As founder and president of Market Vantage over 10 years ago, Hans specializes in helping organizations develop and implement effective internet marketing strategies that make a positive impact. Market Vantage optimizes organic search rankings, manages online advertising, and continuously measures the results to reduce costs and improve ROI. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Hans. Oh, and one more thing. We've got a sign-up sheet that Henry's going to pass around. If you wouldn't mind signing up, that would be great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you all for coming. Can everybody hear me all the way in the back? Okay. All right. So we're going to touch on one area of work that we do. As Eric mentioned, Market Vantage was started actually around 12 years ago. I'm a refugee from the corporate world, and I like the agency side more because you deal with lots of different problems. And we're going to focus a little bit on the online advertising side of the business that we do. And in particular, one of the areas that we help companies is we sort of protect them from themselves in a way. There'll be a couple things that I hope you'll find both educational and maybe a little bit amusing as we kind of illustrate some of the pitfalls that you can run into as you try to roll out internet marketing strategies. But the idea is that most of the organizations that come to us are looking for these objectives. They want to get more prospects, so more prospective customers to their website. They want to convert a higher percentage of them into leads or sales, and they want to get them, if they've been converted into a lead, to convert into a sale down the road. So that's basically the objective of someone in a business or an enterprise that is looking to do marketing online. So how do you do that? Well, there's search engine optimization, which there was a seminar here some time ago that talked about that in greater detail. There's all these different online advertising venues. We'll talk a little bit about those. There's social media marketing. Certainly that creates a buzz and brings traffic to your website. There's lead nurturing. There's marketing automation software, which are things like HubSpot, all the way up to large enterprise systems like things like Eloqua and Marketo. And then there's email marketing. People use Constant Contact or MailChimp as a way to kind of reach out to people where they already have some contact information typically and try to bring them back. And of course, with all of that, there's also sort of traditional forms of marketing, which we're not going to touch on today. So, billboards and radio and TV and newspaper ads and things like that. Today, we're going to focus more on these guys here. So probably you guys know who they are. They're pretty famous in the industry, right? Larry Page, Sergey Brin, and Eric Schmidt, who came in as sort of the adult supervision in the room when Google was in the early stages. These are really happy guys, as you can see. They're smiling broadly, and the reason they're so happy is because if you look at their revenues, they've been going nowhere but up. Most of that revenue is coming from advertising. So everything but the red stuff, which is licensing, basically, software licensing, which is a growing share of their business, to be sure. But the green and the blue area at the bottom, as long as you're not colorblind, denotes money that is generated through the Google AdWords program, okay? And the difference between the green and the blue part is that the green part represents ads that show up on searches that people do, right? Everybody thinks of advertising on Google that I'm going to sponsor a keyword, and when someone types that keyword, my ad is going to show up in the search results. And if someone clicks that ad, they come to my website. And all of that is true, but that just represents the green portion. The blue portion actually represents revenue that Google collects from ads that are run on other people's websites. So if you've traveled around the web, you've probably seen, typically they're banner ads, but sometimes they're text ads that show up on websites, and they say ads by Google. And so if you own a website, you can allow Google to serve ads on that website, and Google will share the advertiser revenue. So the advertiser pays 100%, and Google and the website owner split that 100%. Exactly how they split it, we don't know. Maybe it's 50-50, but this blue portion represents the part that Google gets to keep. And this is important to keep in mind because we're going to come back to something that can go very wrong later on. Yes, sir?
Is that in millions? So that's 70
Billion, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But it's in millions so that it
Yeah,
gets
so
to
that's
millions.
so in 2013 their revenue was approximately $60 billion.
Right.
That's correct. Yeah. Big numbers. Big numbers. Okay? So what are Google's business objectives? We've talked about your business objectives, right? Which you want to get traffic to your website and you want to convert it into leads and sales. What does Google want to do? Well, Google wants more advertisers. These are the people that put that $60 billion into the system, well, minus the licensing. They want more people to click on ads, okay? And they want to charge more money for each click. Now, when I started doing Google AdWords work about 12 years ago, you could get clicks for 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents a click. Those days are long gone, right? Today, we're talking anywhere from, you still see clicks for under $1 depending on what the type of business you're in. But I mean, we're dealing with clicks sometimes that are $20 or $30, $40. They go up over $100 now. And if you're a lawyer in the personal injury business, you pay a lot of money for a click. It's very, and it's an auction. It's very competitive. We're not going to have time to dive into Google's pricing model in this slide deck, but it's kind of fascinating. It doesn't work the way you think it works. So Google wants to satisfy two stakeholders, right? The people that do searches. So they want to give people really good search results because that way they'll keep coming back to Google to do their searches because, there are alternatives out there, right? There's Yahoo and there's Bing and, the Chinese Baidu and lots of different search engines. And they, of course, have to satisfy their investors, so they want to generate more revenue. So Google's objective is not to push all this free traffic to your website. I know you're going to be disappointed to hear that, but that is in fact true. And a lot of companies and organizations have taken advantage of all that free traffic over the years. They've come to rely on that. And I have to tell you that the world is changing. So let's take a look at how that world is changing. So I snapped a screen grab back in 2009. I did a Google search on the term dog food. And as you can see, there's one ad that's highlighted in yellow at the top. And then there's like 4 ads down the right-hand side. So the one in number 1 position is the one that says compare dog food online, the one in highlighted in yellow. And then there's 4 down the right-hand side. And I would say roughly, if you look at that search results page, what's below that yellow highlighted ad, those are what are called the organic results. Those are the ones that come up that Google decides should be there. Okay, those are free if you click on those, right? And the organic results probably take up, I don't know, what would you say, 70% of the real estate on that search results page, correct? So as we look further into 2012, a search on dog food, now you got all this stuff coming up on the right. You look at the ads, and there's really only 2 organic results at the bottom of the page. I would say maybe 30% of that page is taken up by organic results in 2012 for the exact same search, okay? And things changed again. Now, by the way, Google's constantly changing what you see in search results. They're doing what's called multivariate testing to see what works the best. So they're constantly, we are all guinea pigs in Google land, and we are, by our behavior, we are providing feedback to Google on what kind of layouts work better. So here you've got a number of ads at the top. You've got some Google Shopping ads on the upper right and some ads down the right-hand side. And again, you've probably got, I don't know, 40% or 30% of the screen devoted to the organic listings. If you do a slightly different search, this was more recently, on the keyword direct marketing, there's 3 ads at the top, and they're not highlighted in yellow anymore, so they're getting harder to distinguish, although they have that little yellow ad box. The ads down the right-hand side. Then there's something called an answer box that Google pulls data from someplace. They pull content from someplace and puts that up there, because in Google's opinion, if you're looking for information, why should you have to leave Google? Why shouldn't they just give you that information, right? We want to keep your eyeballs on our site. And then below that, there's an organic result that's the one that's above the fold, so to speak, that you would see without scrolling, and that's from Wikipedia. So if you are in the business of direct marketing, if that's what you do, good luck getting an organic listing on the Google search results page that you're not paying for, right? Because you're not going to put Wikipedia behind you, right? They're bigger than we are. And so therefore, the only way you're going to get up here is by paying for it. So you really, today, you have to pay to play, okay? So let's dive into this a little bit. I don't know if you guys get these in the mail. I get these in the mail all the time, which is interesting because it seems like Google corporate isn't talking to their direct mail division or something like that, because we're an agency. We've got 30 Google AdWords accounts that we're running constantly through Google. We're shoveling money toward them, and they send me this thing in the mail telling me, hey, we've got this thing called AdWords. You ought to think about trying to advertise on it. So here's how you do that, okay? So I open up this card. This is a printed piece, and it comes out, it says, well, you run an ad. This is pretty simple. There's a lot of white space or blue space on this. Marketers like that sort of thing. It comes across well, okay? Why? Well, people are looking for what you do, and you want to show up when they're looking, right? It's a great time for you to show up. So how do you do it? Well, you simply write an ad, you choose some search terms that describe your products or services, and then set a budget. Or call us at this toll-free number and let us help you. So, and they give you a little example of what the ad should look like. And they basically tell you that when your customers see it and they click on it, you only get charged when they click, and you can set whatever budget you want. If it works, great. You can keep increasing your budget or not. There's really no risk here. What could possibly go wrong? And then they even give you a little coupon to make it work. The coupons they give you now, you got to spend some money in order to get the money back on the coupon. There's no more sort of free trials here. So let's talk about one of the ways that things could possibly go wrong. There's something in Google AdWords, it says pick some keywords. Okay, well, you pick these keywords and you typically type them in to Google. You say enter your keywords here, so you type them in. Now, unless you put some delimiters around those keywords, as I'm showing here, Google is going to be broad matching on those terms, all right? Well, what does that mean? Well, that means anything kind of similar, maybe includes one of those words, maybe doesn't include one of those words. There's a lot of license you're giving Google as to when they're going to show your ad, okay? So we almost never, as an agency, we almost never use broad match. We almost always use some delimiter on there, and we're very careful about defining, because we want to make sure that that ad is only going to show up when people type what we think is going to be a good keyword. So the first thing I want to leave you with is the thought that the keyword you sponsor and the keyword that someone types to see your ad are not necessarily the same thing, all right? They can be wildly different, all right? So I'll give you an example. Had a client, this is before they became a client, they came to us. They were a pest exterminator. They were spending $8,000 a month on Google AdWords. The owner of the business was running it with Google's help. So that was like, hey, call our toll-free number, we'll help you. So that's what he did, and they were helping him to run this, and he was spending $8,000 a month, and that was sort of what his ad kind of looked like. I've grayed out his URL to protect the innocent here. So we took a look at it and told him, listen, you're spending a lot of money on really bad clicks, and we actually showed him some of this, and I'm going to share some of that with you. But after a month of running this, the percentage of bad keywords not the keywords that he was sponsoring, but the keywords that were bringing traffic to his clicks, went from 24% down to about 4%. So if you look at that across an $8,000 budget, we're talking real money here, okay? So what kind of keywords were triggering his ads? Well, here you go. You can read these yourselves. But they're, you know, if you sponsor a keyword like ants, okay, you're going to get all kinds of stuff having to do with ants, including, you know, 1997 Maxima Power Ant, for example. You know, it has obviously nothing to do with exterminating pests in your house. He had spent about $8 per click on SWOT analysis, which is SWOT analysis is kind of a marketing term. I'm not sure how that came up, but, and then there's more, you know, mortar and pestle. Well, that's got the word pest in it, so maybe that's one that Google. So you can see when you broad match, you really need to start thinking about, you know, what kind of keywords are going to trigger this. And in your normal dashboard, this stuff doesn't show up, right? You don't see this unless you drill down. But wait, there's more, okay? So we found this, you know, if it wasn't costing him so much money, it would have been really funny. But you know, these are actual words that people were typing. And they were, that they were typing in, and then they saw his ad, and then they clicked on his ad. So how many more of these would trigger his ad to show up when they didn't click on it, we don't know, all right? But that's an important consideration as well, because Google, we talked about that Google uses a fairly complex way to price the clicks on your ads. And part of that is driven by what's called your click-through rate, okay? The click-through rate is the ratio of how many times your ad appears versus how many times your ad is clicked. Google, obviously, their search results real estate is very valuable to them. And if your ad keeps showing up and nobody clicks on your ad, you're wasting their space, and they're going to be, you're out of here, right? Because your click-through rate goes down. And so what's going to happen is if you want to continue to be in position 2 or 3, you're going to have to keep increasing your bid and increasing your bid and increasing your bid, all right? And eventually you're going to get flushed down the toilet anyway. So you've got to write ads that are very related to the keywords that you're typing. So by having a low click-through rate, he was paying a lot more money for his clicks that he was getting. So not only was he spending a lot of the money on bad clicks, but his click-through rate was a lot lower. He's paying more money for each of those clicks. So it really starts to add up. What else can go wrong? Well, we talked about the fact that when we remember that little bar chart I showed you on Google's revenue, and we broke down the green area from the blue area and the display network. So you got the search network and you got the display network. Now you can run ads on the Google search results page, or you can run ads on other people's websites, and they're different. They're very different, and I'm not saying one is better or worse than the other, they're just different, right? The ads that you see on other people's websites are things that you just discover, versus on a search, you've got a motivated guy or a person who's typing something in, so they're looking for something. A very different dynamic at play there, okay? The second thing is that, okay, which websites are my ads going to show up on if I'm on the display network, right? Well, Google provides a bunch of different techniques for doing that. In this case, we're going to look at a particular case study. This is actual data from a client where they ran some campaigns. And I'm sorry, it's kind of an eye chart, but if you look at it in the results, so these guys came to us and they said, you know, they signed up as a client, and they said, oh, by the way, take a look at one of the campaigns we ran a couple of months ago. We put $1,800, you see it's $1,782.58. That's what they spent on clicks in this particular campaign, and it really didn't work. If you look at the converted clicks over there, there's zeros, okay? They didn't get any leads from this. They put $1,800 into this machine and they got no leads back, okay? Now, what this was about was, this is a company that sold basically internet plumbing. They make the internet run faster, okay? And one of their competitors had a product called Contendo. Contendo had suddenly gone out of business. They were later acquired, but that's beside the point. They decided, you know what, all these people that have Contendo, they need a platform to migrate onto. Why not go after them? So, you know, they put keywords in like Contendo migration strategy and Contendo alternative, and makes a lot of sense, right? They put those keywords into Google, and then lo and behold, these were the results they got. And if you look at it on search, they got 8 clicks. They had 1,400 impressions and 8 clicks, impressions when your ad shows up. On the display network, they had over 500,000 impressions, and they had 3,874 clicks at an average cost of 46 cents. So that's where all the money went. They only spent $16. They didn't tell it to do this. Google just decided to divvy it up this way. They just ran it. They didn't realize that when you run a Google AdWords ad, by default, your ad will show up on display and on search, unless you turn it off, okay? So that's a really important thing to remember. So, okay, so all these ads showed up, we got all these clicks from display. Why didn't they convert? Well, what we did was we drilled in and we took a look at what websites were these ads showing up on. And the first one, as you can see, is called imagenhermosas.com, if you can read that, right? That's where they got the lion's share of their clicks. Okay, they spent over $1,000 on that website. So what is that website? Well, if you go to that website, here's a snapshot of it. It's in Spanish. As near as I can tell, I'm not a Spanish speaker. As near as I can tell, these guys sell like sentimental greeting cards or little sayings and stuff like that. Has nothing to do with internet plumbing, okay? So their ad showed up on here, just like that Google Partners ad there showed up for me, or that other ad, have you graded your web? Those showed up perhaps because of my interest or because I'd been to their website before or something like that. So any clicks they got from here would have been essentially worthless to them, right? Because they didn't keep track of that. So there are other options to consider besides Google, and I just put this chart together. I'm not sure it really displays what I'm trying to convey here very clearly, but if you think about it, there's 4 axes, okay? The vertical axis runs from motivation to demographics. This is about targeting your audience, okay? So you can target your audience by what motivates them. You know, what are they really after, let's say, versus demographics, which is more like who are they, what kind of company they work for, what kind of what kind of things do they read, what are their interests. So there's a kind of a continuum along there, and then there's the continuum between consumers and businesses. So businesses selling to businesses on the right, businesses selling to consumers, B2C, on the left, okay? And so if you look at AdWords and Bing search, which are very similar, so Bing allows you to run ads on both the Bing search engine and Yahoo, all right? That can run across from consumers to businesses, but it's really more targeted to motivation because it's search-based, right? People are typing something in and they're looking for something, which is a very different dynamic than AdWords and Bing display across the bottom. That still spans from consumers to businesses. You could use it for advertising, you know, bicycles or television sets to consumers, as well as, you know, high-end software products to other businesses, which is the area on the right, okay? But they're very different in terms of the motivation versus demographics access. Then you look at Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads, all right? Facebook ads tend to be targeted much more toward consumers. If I'm a business guy and I'm looking for a new IT product, I don't go looking on Facebook, but I might go hunting around on LinkedIn, okay? Or I might find something on my LinkedIn page that's appealing to me, because on LinkedIn you can target the type of business, the size of the business, the expertise of the person, their position in the business, that kind of thing. So you can target those business demographics in LinkedIn with advertising, right, that shows up in their news feed when they're on their LinkedIn page. Or on the Facebook side, you can target it based on, you know, what their interests are or what they've provided Facebook in terms of their demographics, like their gender, their age, where they live, those types of things, which might be interesting from a consumer standpoint. So not every platform works for everything. That's sort of the take home here. And different platforms work really well for other things. And part of what we do as a company is when we get with a new customer, we try to figure out what is their business and who's their target audience, who are they after, and what would be the best way to reach those kinds of people. AdWords is not necessarily going to work for everybody, okay? So talk a little bit more about platforms, and this actually came up earlier in the conversation in the lunchroom, where more and more people are using phones and tablets now to do their browsing, right? That number of 25% of Americans only access the internet, that was in 2013. It's already creeping up toward 40% now. And it's skewed toward a younger demographic. So the younger you are, the more likely you are to surf the web on your phone or on your tablet. Old guys like me, we like to have a big screen because our eyes are starting to go bad, all right? Interestingly enough, WordStream did a survey. WordStream is a Boston-based company that has a platform for doing online advertising. We actually use them. But they did a survey and found that the mobile clicks tend to outperform desktop clicks in terms of conversions, which is a good thing because they tend to cost a lot more too. They tend to cost about 3 times as much as well. And then there's different design concepts on a website. Here's an example. On the left you see the desktop version. This is a landscaping company. On the left you see what you would see if you visited that website on your desktop or laptop. On the right you see what I saw on my iPhone 5. Okay, so I snapped a picture of that. And you can see the total difference. And there's this thing up here. This is called a hamburger. When you click on that, it expands down into a menu. Okay, so it's all kind of, everything is kind of verticalized so that you can scroll up and down on your phone, and you can go in and you have a good viewing experience. And as we mentioned at the lunch just earlier, Google has announced that as of April 21st, if your website isn't mobile friendly, if it doesn't present a nice face to people on a mobile phone, you're not going to show, that website's not going to show up as well on search results if you do the search results on a mobile device. Okay? It won't affect you if you're on desktop, but it will affect you if you're mobile. Here's another example of what not to do. We were pulled into a project. This is actually a university that are trying to attract students. So if you're going for a degree program and you click through to say, hey, I'd like some information, this is their interest page. This is not an application, okay? I'm not applying to the college. I'm simply saying, send me some information, please. I'm interested in your programs. This is what you got to fill out. By the way, it looks like this on your cell phone too. Can you imagine filling that out on your cell phone? Now, and again, they're a college, right? They're targeting a younger demographic. To me, it's like, okay, you know, you could spend what you want on Google AdWords, but you got another problem you need to fix here first, right? So a couple of takeaways I want to leave you with. As we said, Google will send you fewer and fewer free clicks, okay? The days of that are slowly coming to an end, and you have to really pay to play. Now the question is, you know, do you use Google? Do you use something else? And that really depends on your business. Advertising on AdWords, you know, these can be very effective, and you can use it to really target who you want to go after in a way that print advertising was never really able to do, okay? I mean, who reads the Boston Globe? It's a wide swath of the population. So you're paying for that ad to appear, you know, to a large number of people who will never be interested in what you're selling. And that's a real advantage. But typically you're in an auction, okay? So you're bidding for those clicks against other advertisers. I've watched, for example, on LinkedIn, in the past year, I would say that the average cost per click has about doubled on LinkedIn as that platform has caught on. So it was about $3.50 a click a year ago. We're now talking about $7.50, $8 a click. Only 1 year later, because people have caught on. It was really great in the beginning when we jumped on it because it was still relatively undiscovered. It's getting a lot more competitive now, okay? So the clicks are expensive. Figuring out how to do it and making mistakes along the way is very expensive as well. And the default settings they give you, as I showed you on some of that Google stuff earlier, are really set to maximize their revenue and not the results that the advertiser is going to get. Third thing is, like, conversion is really important. Conversion means somebody came to your website and let's say they either filled out a form or in some way, you know, if it's a mobile site, they could click the phone number and call you. Those are all conversions, right? Somebody just didn't come to your website and they went away. They actually did something, they reached out, they connected with you, and they became a lead, okay? So that's really important. And really, before you go and you spend money on online advertising, you got to make sure this part is actually working, okay? Because if your conversion strategy is working a lot better than your competitor's conversion strategy, you can afford to outspend them on the advertising side. It gives you a tremendous advantage, okay? So those are sort of the major thoughts I wanted to leave behind. For those of you that are in the audience or see this on the replay, for the first 10 people that respond, if you want to get into AdWords, whether you have an existing campaign or you just want to talk about the possibility of how that might work for you, be happy to consult with you for free for 15 minutes. We can generally do it by phone. We have clients that we've never met. You know, we have clients all over the country and in fact all over the world. So we use different screen sharing technologies now. It's gotten really easy to communicate well with people and kind of look at things and figure out what ifs and things like that. But I hope it's been helpful. I hope I haven't scared anybody off, but we spend a lot, like I said, we spend a lot of our time really helping people, preventing people from making mistakes and fixing things where there's money being spent in a bad way so that they can take that money and actually spend it effectively on things that actually do work. So hopefully I've given you a few examples and it's been helpful to you. But I really appreciate your attention, and I'll hang around if any of you want to ask any questions. Okay? Thanks.